It seems like every day now there's some crazy new AI development.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're living in the future.
The pace of change is absolutely wild. Headlines in every sector, from creative fields to like huge industries everywhere.
It can be a little overwhelming trying to keep up, for sure.
Totally. It feels like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
That's exactly why we're here today.
Exactly. We've done the digging for you to cut through the noise. In this deep dive, we're going to break down the most important recent AI news.
Looking at everything from the big tech announcements to the research that might fly under the radar, we want to bring you those crucial developments, but without getting bogged down in the technical weeds.
Yeah, think of this as your AI news cheat sheet.
Precisely, your rapid briefing on what really matters in AI right now.
We're aiming to pull out those key insights and those surprising trends that are shaping our understanding of this, well, rapidly evolving field. And I think a perfect place to start is with AI image generation. I mean, it's been a hot topic recently.
Oh, absolutely. Seems like everyone's talking about it these days.
For good reason. We've seen the arrival of HART, a new AI image generation model from MIT and NVIDIA.
Okay, HART, MIT, NVIDIA. Got it.
And the thing that really stands out right away is its speed. Apparently, it's 9 times faster than current diffusion models.
9 times faster. Wow, that's a game changer.
It's not just a small improvement either. It's a 9-fold speed increase. It could totally change how interactive AI image generation can be.
Yeah.
Potentially even enabling things like real-time editing and animation, things that just weren't possible before.
Imagine artists being able to sculpt images with AI just as easily as they do with traditional tools.
It could be incredible. And it's not just the speed. It also uses much less computational power.
How much less?
About 31% less. And that means it could even run on things like standard laptops and smartphones.
Wow, that accessibility could really open up AI image creation to, well, pretty much everyone.
Right, democratizing these powerful tools.
I read that it uses a hybrid autoregressive transformer and a smaller diffusion model.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, the autoregressive transformer part means the AI has a better memory of what it's already generated.
So it can create more coherent images faster. Makes sense.
Exactly. And then the smaller diffusion model, well, that's like a more efficient way to kind of polish the final image. It's using fewer resources for that final refinement process.
So faster and more efficient.
Exactly. Now, alongside this development, we also saw some interesting things happening around OpenAI's ChatGPT, and specifically its image generation capabilities.
Oh, yeah, the whole Studio Ghibli thing
Right,
where
yeah.
everyone was turning their photos into those beautiful anime-style pictures. Took over social media for a while there.
It really did capture the imagination. It showed just how much interest there is in AI for creative tasks.
For sure. But then what was really interesting was how OpenAI had to kind of navigate the boundaries of this new tech. Because at first they seemed to relax some of the restrictions on what kinds of images you could make.
Right.
But then almost immediately they seemed to backtrack on that a little bit.
Yeah, they specifically started blocking prompts that included the names of individual artists.
While still allowing users to, request styles associated with studios like Ghibli.
Exactly. That's a very fine line to walk.
And then wasn't there also a pretty significant delay in making the feature available to free users because there was so much demand?
Yeah, they were totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of users wanting to try it out.
And that led to that delay for people on the free tier.
It did.
This whole episode just really highlights how complicated things are in the world of AI-generated content, from a legal and ethical perspective.
Yeah, the legal and ethical landscape around it is complex.
Because like those viral Ghibli pictures, you immediately think of Hayao Miyazaki and his pretty strong views about AI and creative work.
He's been very vocal about his concerns, to say the least.
I think he called AI an insult to life itself. You have this hugely popular use of AI butting up against the deeply held views of a legendary creator.
It's a clash of values.
And of course, there's the New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft.
Right. Which we understand is still going ahead.
Although with some changes to the original claims.
It really underscores the legal questions that are being raised as AI models are trained on this massive amount of data, including copyright material. It's a situation that could have major implications for AI companies going forward.
Yeah, for the future of intellectual property in this new AI age.
Absolutely. But shifting gears a little, but still talking about AI and images.
Okay.
The example of AOL's AI image captions misidentifying an attempted murder, that really shows how AI can still get things very wrong, especially when it comes to understanding context.
It was a really disturbing example. You have this AI describing a couple smiling on a beach at sunset, but the image it was supposed to be describing was, well, something completely different.
It is horrifying.
And it really shows that even though AI can create these impressive visuals, understanding what those visuals mean is a whole other challenge.
Context is key, and that's something AI still struggles with.
For sure. So let's shift gears completely now and talk about how AI is really starting to impact the business world.
Okay, sound good.
Amazon, for one, seems to be making some big moves in this space.
They are. They're really expanding their use of generative AI. For example, they've got this new shopping feature called Interests.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's basically designed to give you much more specific product suggestions based on what you say you're into, your hobbies and preferences. The goal is to take your natural language descriptions and turn them into really refined search results.
So if I say I'm really into collecting vintage board game dice from the 80s, this AI can find exactly what I'm looking for out of all those millions of product listings.
That's the idea, yeah.
Wow.
A way more personalized shopping experience. And they're going even further into healthcare with this thing called Health AI.
Health AI.
Yeah, it's a chatbot. It can answer your wellness questions, offer some basic health guidance, suggest relevant products or services. It can even point you to their pharmacy and medical stuff. And it looks like their new and improved digital assistant, Alexa plus A, is going to be really important for all of this, managing all of these new AI-driven features.
So Amazon's putting AI at the heart of its interactions with its users in all these different ways.
Yeah, it seems like they're really strategically using AI to become even more embedded in people's everyday lives.
From their shopping habits to their health and well-being.
Exactly.
Now, switching gears a bit, Bill Gates recently made some pretty interesting predictions about AI, specifically how it's going to impact professions like doctors and teachers.
He did. He actually suggested that AI could replace doctors and teachers within the next 10 years.
Wow.
He said there'll be an initial phase where AI will just help humans do their jobs better. But ultimately, he sees significant job displacement in those sectors.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is he also thinks that jobs in entertainment and creative fields might be safer.
Okay.
He used the example of, people still wanting to watch human baseball players, not robots.
An interesting point.
So it's not all doom and gloom, but it is a pretty bold prediction. I'm sure it's generated a lot of debate.
Absolutely. And he was also pretty clear about the current limitations of AI, right?
He did acknowledge that. He talked about inaccuracies and the potential for AI to spread misinformation. But he's clearly excited about its potential in areas like healthcare, education, and fighting climate change. It's a fascinating mix of potential disruption and huge opportunity.
Yeah.
And on a more immediate level, companies are already using AI to tackle very specific business challenges,
Sure.
like Polyguard, for example. They just launched this tech that's meant to defend against deep fakes and AI-driven fraud, and it works in real time.
Okay.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What's really important about what Polyguard's doing is they're focusing on proactive defense against all these different forms of AI-enabled fraud, like voice and video call spoofing and deep fake impersonation.
That's scary stuff.
It is. And as AI gets more sophisticated, these techniques are only going to get more sophisticated too. So we're going to need technologies like Polyguards to protect us.
Yeah, to keep things secure and to maintain trust.
Exactly.
And it's not just about protecting against threats. AI is also being used to streamline things and optimize how different industries operate.
Right.
Like Taxo, this startup backed by Y Combinator, they just raised $5 million for their AI reasoning engine. It's designed to cut down on all that paperwork in healthcare.
I read about that.
It sounds like it could really change things in a sector that's drowning in admin.
I think so. If we could take that burden away from healthcare professionals, it would free up so much of their time they could actually focus on what matters, which is patient care.
Exactly. We also saw Uptiv Health partnering with Lamar Health to expand AI automation in specialty medication management.
Another example of AI being used for really specific tasks within the healthcare system.
It seems like there's a growing trend of using AI for these niche and often very complex problems in healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just smaller companies. The big tech players are forming alliances around AI too, like Anthropic and Databricks.
Yeah, they just announced this $100 million deal to work together. They're going to jointly market and sell AI tools to businesses. That's a massive investment. Shows how much faith they have in the future of enterprise AI solutions.
It does. And Anthropic's also expanding their Claude AI.
Yeah, apparently they're going to include these domain-specific AI agents.
Yeah.
And I've also seen reports that they're about to release Claude 3.7.
Okay, Claude 3.7. And what's special about that?
It's supposed to have a huge context window, like 500,000 tokens.
500,000. Wow. And what does that mean in practice?
It means the AI can remember and process way more information at once. It's like having a much longer attention span,
Okay.
so it can understand more complex instructions, and the outputs it generates will be more coherent.
That could really unlock new possibilities for what AI can do.
I think so.
Okay, let's talk about the financial sector. Accenture seems to be way ahead of the game when it comes to taking advantage of the AI boom. They just reported $1.4 billion in new generative AI deals. That's a lot of money.
It's a staggering amount. And what's interesting is they seem to be doing way better than some of the big Indian IT firms. Apparently, those firms are adopting generative AI at a much slower pace. And their strategies are different too.
So it looks like there's a real difference in how prepared different regions and organizations are for this AI revolution.
Yeah. And it's not just companies. Even more traditional institutions are exploring what AI can do for them. Like the Stock Exchange of Thailand. They've partnered with Google to develop an AI-powered search solution.
Really? That's interesting.
It is. They're using it to enhance their capital markets.
It shows that AI is becoming relevant in all kinds of sectors, even ones you might not immediately associate with cutting-edge technology.
Exactly. Now, let's not forget about the infrastructure that all of this AI relies on. Things like those advanced computer
Oh,
chips.
those huge data centers.
Yeah. And NVIDIA's GTC 2025 announcements were really important for all of that.
Absolutely. It felt like a glimpse into the future of AI. They unveiled so many advancements across their whole product range.
From their new GPUs to breakthroughs in AI software, they even talked about robotics and quantum computing.
They've got these collaborations in the automotive sector with GM and Volvo. They launched their NVIDIA Halos safety system for self-driving cars.
And their new Cosmos World Foundation models for creating realistic physical AI environments. It was a lot to take in.
They even unveiled NVIDIA G-Assist. It's this AI-powered tool that runs on their RTX GPUs.
The sheer breadth of their announcements really shows how important they are to the whole AI ecosystem.
Yeah, they're providing both the hardware and the software that make all of this possible.
And it's not just NVIDIA. SK Hynix, a major memory manufacturer, has already sold most of its AI-focused memory production for 2026.
Wow, that's crazy.
The demand is just incredible.
Yeah, it shows how much the industry believes in the future of AI.
On the AI model training side of things, there was this collaborative research project that introduced BAFT. It's an AI autosave system that's designed to drastically reduce losses during AI training, which can be a really long and computationally intensive process.
Okay.
And they're saying it could reduce training losses by 98%.
98%, that's huge.
It could save so much time and energy and resources when we're developing these advanced AI models.
That's incredible. And then we saw NVIDIA making progress in data center networking with their silicon photonics-based network switching.
Yeah, that's essential for handling the massive amounts of data that these complex AI workloads need.
And then there's Ant Group, who've decided to diversify their semiconductor suppliers. They're not just relying on NVIDIA anymore, they're also working with AMD and some Chinese manufacturers.
Interesting. I guess they're thinking about supply chain resilience and maybe some geopolitical factors too.
Makes sense.
They've also been making some interesting advancements in using AI for healthcare.
Yeah, their AI applications are being used in several hospitals in China.
It's another example of how these technological developments are having a real-world impact.
Okay, so we've talked about all these big companies and their advancements, but let's not forget about the importance of open collaboration in the AI community.
Right.
There have been some really exciting open source initiatives recently.
Yeah, like the development of Open Deep Search, or ODS for short.
ODS.
It's a framework that's designed to make search technology more democratic. They're using open source reasoning agents to do this.
So making search algorithms more transparent and customizable, that's a really interesting idea.
It is. It could lead
Yep.
to all sorts of innovation.
And then there's the Open Sora 2.0 project.
Yeah, they're trying to build a video AI with similar capabilities to OpenAI's Sora,
Okay.
but with a much smaller budget and using open collaboration. It's really ambitious.
It shows how passionate the open source community is about creating AI that's accessible to everyone.
And Google's also contributed to this with their release of Gemini 2.5 Coder.
Yeah, it's a free AI coding assistant that runs locally on your computer.
So developers don't have to pay for it. and they don't need to be connected to the cloud to use it.
That's amazing. It could really boost productivity for developers everywhere.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, finally, let's touch on some of the policy and regulatory stuff that's happening around AI.
Yeah, that's important too.
So the U.S. government is still trying to limit China's AI ambitions. They've imposed more trade restrictions on tech companies that are linked to the Chinese military.
It's a sign of the geopolitical competition that's going on around AI. Everyone wants to be the leader in this space.
Meanwhile, the European Union might be softening the impact of its Digital Markets Act on big U.S. tech companies like Apple and Meta.
Really?
Apparently, they're worried about retaliation from the U.S.
It shows how complicated the relationship between national interests and global tech regulation is.
And Joanne Zhang from OpenAI had an interesting take on AI policy recently. She suggested we need to move away from these broad, sweeping bans in certain areas and focus more on targeted regulations that aim to prevent real-world harm, specific things that could actually cause problems.
So a more nuanced approach.
Exactly. She said we should trust user creativity and not try to predict everything in advance.
That's a really interesting point. It's hard to regulate something that's changing so fast.
It is.
Okay, let's just quickly recap what we've talked about today.
Okay.
So we've seen huge advancements in AI image generation with models like HART.
Right.
There's all this debate about creative AI, like ChatGPT's image capabilities.
And tech giants like Amazon are putting AI into everything from shopping to healthcare.
And people like Bill Gates are making these bold predictions about the future of work in the age of AI.
And on a more practical level, businesses are using AI to improve security and efficiency. And companies like NVIDIA are making incredible progress in AI infrastructure.
And we can't forget about those exciting open source initiatives.
It's a really dynamic and rapidly changing field.
So given everything we've talked about today, here's a final thought for you to consider.
Okay.
What single AI development that we've discussed do you think is going to have the biggest impact on your life in the next few weeks or months?
It could be something positive or something worrying, or maybe just something that makes you curious.
What's going to change your world?
We encourage you to keep thinking about these things.
Yeah, stay informed and keep an eye on how AI continues to evolve.
This could be an interesting ride.
That's for sure.